Hey friend, Graham here from recordingrevolution.com. And today I want to show you a cool trick you can use to create more energy, more excitement in your mix. This is something I learned from Andrew Sheps. I saw him demonstrate this years ago. It's something that I call the parallel mix technique or parallel mix trick. He calls it his rear bus mix technique or rear bus trick. And it's really simple to pull off, very useful, and a great tool to have in your bag of tricks. It's going to involve your favorite DAW, so any software can use this, and then your favorite compressor. Today I'm going to be using the SSL bus compressor, but I've used 1176s, I've used all kinds of compressors to pull this off. So what I want to do is show you how you can quickly bring some energy and punch to your mix using Andrew Sheps's parallel mix trick. All right, so here we are inside of my mix. And what I'm going to do is just simply play you a little bit of the hook of the song. And I want you to zero in on this yellow track here that I've labeled P-Mix. I've got it muted to start, so you're going to hear the mix in normal mixing fashion. And then I'm going to turn this parallel mix channel on, and you're going to hear what this trick is doing to the mix. I'll go back and forth so you can hear the sound of this technique, and then I'll show you how to pull it off and what is actually happening under the hood. So let's start by listening.
Gonna bring me down. Hey, hey, something's going wrong these days. 'Cause they're coming out swinging these blades, trying to prove it's for honor. Hey, hey, something's going wrong these days. Coming out swinging these blades, trying to prove it's for honor.
Now you're noticing thicker guitars, more aggressive vocals, more excitement. Now, some of you might be screaming, but Graham, it's just getting louder. And you were right, it is getting louder, but this is not the same as just turning up the mix, okay? You could simply turn up the guitars and get more guitar level. There's something very specific going on under the hood of this technique that I think you'll find very helpful. So yes, there is added gain. So it's not a level matched comparison, but it's really hard to pull that off in any kind of parallel processing fashion because by definition, you are adding more audio to the signal. So let me show you what is going on here and then we'll dive into it again. The way this originated with Andrew, as far as I understand, was that on his old console, he had an additional master bus, an additional master fader that's called the rear bus on his console. And he would sometimes do this kind of parallel processing to that bus and blend it in with the main bus. And he does this in the digital domain still because he's now 100% in the box. So this parallel trick is basically taking everything but your drums, okay, every track in the mix except your drums, and bussing those to an additional track that then you heavily compress and blend in with the uncompressed rest of the mix. The way this is pulled off functionally is I've created a stereo auxiliary track here in Pro Tools. A stereo bus or stereo track that you can route audio to is all you need. There's no audio recorded here, but it's an auxiliary track. Its output is the same as the rest of my tracks, mix bus. That's my master fader. So it's outputting to my final mix bus. But then what I do is use a post fader send on every track and send a copy to this parallel track. So this is very important. I'm going to pull up this bass synth here. This is where I'm starting, is on the bass, and everything goes to the right. The red tracks are my drums, and you don't do this to the drums on this technique. I've got a full volume fader send here going, but this is post fader, not pre-fader. Now, in default Pro Tools land, it is post-fader, so this should be already set up, unless you've changed it in your preferences. You'd have to click this pre button to make the send pre-fader. So by default in Pro Tools, it is post-fader. Now, what does that mean? Well, post-fader means the send sends a copy of that audio post or after the fader down here, which means if I pull the volume of this bass down, the send will now send no signal because this fader is down, okay? But with this back up where it was, it sends plenty of signal. The send is determined by what the fader does. It's post or after the fader. If it were pre-fader, then this fader down here could be all the way down in the mix, but the send will still send a full volume copy. We don't want that. We want this send up here to mirror our actual balance that we have in our whole mix and all the faders. Got me? The only other thing I want to keep in mind here is if you have a follow main pan FMP style button, you want to engage that, because if you have guitars, let's say over here, this send, I've got the guitar panned 57 to the right. This send needs to be panned exactly the same place so that the mix is a mirror image of the real mix. Okay. So post fader, make sure that the pan pots or pan knobs follow the actual pan knobs in the mix. And you just copy that type of send and those settings all the way across your tracks, all the guitars, all the synths, keyboards, lead vocal, my group of background vocals, my group of gang vocals, etc. So these are all basically sending a mirror image of the mix to this track. And what I'm going to do is mute my group tracks where all the audio is going through. So all you're going to hear is the copy of the mix here.
Gonna bring me down. Hey, hey, something's going wrong these days. 'Cause they're coming out swinging these blades.
All right. So that is just a mirror image of my mix using sends minus the drums. That's goal number one. Goal number two is to now compress that. So what I've done is grabbed an SSL bus compressor. You can use any compressor you like. In fact, Andrew is a master at compression. He always has templates with multiple compressors already preloaded, and he'll just bust tracks to those compressors just to hear what they're doing to the audio. And in that moment, pick a compressor that sounds cool in the moment. So there's no prescription here. I've used the Wave CLA 76. I've used the CLA 3A. I'm using the Master Bus compressor here. All compressors sound different. They hit audio differently. So experiment with a couple of compressors. Any compressor will do, though. And what I've got is just some somewhat aggressive compression going on. It's only a 4-to-1 ratio, slow attack, fast release. So it's usually gentle, but I've got a pretty high threshold, or low threshold, as you would say. So it's doing a lot of gain reduction. Take a listen to what this sounds like.
Gonna bring me down. Hey, hey, something's going wrong these days. 'Cause they're coming out swinging these blades. Trying to prove it's for honor. Hey, hey.
So what you see with the gain reduction meter is certain things will trigger the compressor. When the vocals are doing the haze, that's loud, and so that's compressing that whole mix. When those haze stop, then the compressor backs off, so then the guitars that are just strumming along fill back up with volume. The makeup gain happens again. So this beautiful thing we've created here is this auto mixing channel. It kind of ebbs and flows with whatever is the loudest, most dynamic instrument at the moment will take over and trigger the compressor and turn it down. But when that instrument goes away, it allows everything else to fill back in the space. So you almost have some like automated automation happening on this channel. So it's a very interesting channel. It's not just the mix duplicated, it is this now balanced mix because of the compressor minus the drums. So then what we can do is bring that into the rest of the mix. So what I'm going to do is pull the fader down, press play, and start fading up the PMix channel to blend in this parallel track with the mix, and we can hear what it's doing.
Gonna bring me down. Hey, hey, something's going wrong these days. 'Cause they're coming out swinging these blades. Trying to prove it's for honor. Hey, hey, something's going wrong these days. Coming out swinging these blades. Trying to prove it's for honor.
Right? So I took it up maybe a little too much where it's just super loud. Maybe not too much. Maybe that just makes it sound cool. But the beauty is, like any kind of parallel processing, you can now adjust this fader to taste, not only for the entire mix to what you like it to sound, but even automate this fader to bring it up or down throughout the mix to give you that edge or that thickness when and where you like, and take it away when and where you like. So you now have a lot of options in your toolkit. So again, the idea here, again, not my idea, Andrew Shep's completely, so give him full credit for this concept. This is something I think you should at least experiment with. Grab your favorite compressor, bus everything but the drums with a post fader send to an auxiliary track, a bus that's available, compress it, blend it in with the regular mix, and see what it does for your mix. It might not be the recipe for every song, but it might in certain levels. And depending what compressor you use, you can get a different sound. But this is something to at least know how to do because certain tracks might really demand some more thickness, some more energy, and you don't know how to get it. This can give it to you while keeping the dynamics and musicality of the rest of the mix so you're not overly squashing things like on your master fader. There you go, the parallel mix trick by Andrew Sheps. Thanks for watching again. I'm Graham from recordingrevolution.com. Head on over anytime to pick up some free guides to make better sounding recordings and mixes in your home studio.
Hey!